Look like you've had anything since then, except for maybe 3 damage accident crashes,
Yes,
maybe?
yes, sir. I backed into a lady about 2 or 3 years ago, and then I had a individual hit me just about a year ago.
Alcohol involved in either
No,
of those?
no.
Okay, no more questions.
Thank you. Any other questions of this individual? Okay. Slayton, if you don't mind, I'd like to talk to your representative of
Yes, sir.
Jasper Police Department. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Can you identify yourself, sir?
I'm Billy Mason, Chief of Jasper Police Department.
Nice to see you this morning, Chief.
Nice to see you.
Could you go over with the board kind of your pre-employment investigation and what all you have found out in your background of this individual and what's led you to
Besides the
reach out to your department?
besides the DUI that he had and had all the funds and stuff paid, we done a check on him where he was working at the correction facility, and he had been there for, I don't know, like 15 years, and he was already a lieutenant, and he was wanting to do something better with his life. The only other step up was to manage one, and he said he didn't really wanted to do that. He wanted to go something a little further on a different direction, and I asked him, would he be interested, and I know his wife, and they was raised with my kids, so, but all the investigation that we done on him, he's been an outstanding officer up there.
Any questions of the chief? A motion to approve and have a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you, board.
Next up, the La Follette Police Department requests a military discharge waiver for Austin Blake Tyndall. In December of 2020, Mr. Tyndall was discharged from the United States Army with a general under honorable conditions discharge due to misconduct.
Anybody representing, so you come forward, please, and would let the department representative go first, please, and identify.
Matthew Forsyth, Lieutenant, Training, La Follette Police Department.
Thank you. What have you found in your pre-employment investigation here that brought on this under the general discharge in the DD 214? Was there a special code in there that brought this up, or what did you find out?
Again, I'm not super familiar with the discharge under general discharge. What we were able to find out was just by speaking with Mr. Tyndall, and based off of that, we found that we feel like we would like to give him an opportunity to work for us if the board would waive it. We didn't find any real misconduct. What we understand was more of a situation where maybe they weren't wanting to work so much with getting him the help, or maybe the stuff he needed to be able to cope and deal with his situation.
Where's he working at now?
He works for the Tenova Healthcare in La Follette at the hospital, doing security on the weekends.
Questions of the lieutenant? If you would, we'll speak with Mr. Tyndall.
Hello, everyone. My name is Austin Tyndall.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you go over with the board the actions that led to this general discharge and kind of go over your background in the military and your job history and just kind of get to know you?
Of course, sir.
Thank you.
So, in the Army, I was a 92 Fox. I was a petroleum supply specialist. I had an outstanding record until my wife had kind of done some unfavorable things with my friend whenever I was out on a mission. I came back home to find that, and my platoon sergeant wasn't too accepting of me going to counseling, and I received 2 FTRs, which were led to an Article 15 for going to appointments rather than showing up for where I was supposed to be at the time. And I do take full accountability for that. And, but since then, I've had all the help that I've needed, and these guys have been great too. I think that's pretty much the whole story. After the Article 15, one of my team leaders asked me if I just wanted to go ahead and get out a few months early, and I accepted the decision, and I shouldn't have. And I've been fighting it ever since to get upgraded.
Any questions of the board of this situation? General Terry?
Mr. Tim, how long were you in the Army?
2 years and 6 months, 4 months, 4 months, 2 years, 4 months.
So that was the only, and just for the benefit of the board, when we talk about Article 15, it's in the Marine Corps and Navy, they call it office hours. It's basically administrative punishment. A commander can call in a service member and render a certain degree of punishment. It's not considered a times it's something that would have been prosecuted. So when you say FTR, I think that's an Army term. I'm an old Marine. That just means like unauthorized absence.
Yeah, it's just failure to report. It's not AWOL or anything. It's just.
And is that the only Article 15?
No, I had 2 Article 15s.
Okay, but for the same kind of thing?
Yes, they were both for the same kind of thing.
Okay. When we're talking about a administrative discharge for misconduct, it's typically minor misconduct, and there has to be some kind of a pattern, or at least multiple instances of misconduct. And this seems pretty low on the bar for a discharge to happen. So your discharge, how short were you from your end of your enlistment?
I was 7 months and 13 days away from, I was almost at the point to where I could start turning my stuff into CIF. So I was almost done.
Nancy, an attorney?
Yes, they did offer me the opportunity to talk with an attorney, but once my team lead asked me if I would just rather pursue getting out, I wanted to go home. My wife had took my daughter from me and moved back home, and I'd been down there by myself for a while, so.
I don't have any other questions.
Any other? Commissioner Wright, go ahead.
Mr. Tindall, thank you for your service while you was in and overseas serving for us. So pretty much it was just your mental health, mental state of mind during that time.
Yes, sir.
Being a law enforcement officer is a very tough challenge on mental health at times as well. You feel like you're prepared and able to take care of that?
Oh, yes, sir. I've been well equipped with the tools to cope and move through those things since that has happened.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you.
Metropolitan Nashville Police Department requests a military discharge waiver for Caleb Hill Collins, hired February 16, 2023. In August of 2018, Mr. Collins was discharged from the United States Marine Corps with an uncharacterized discharge due to failure to adapt.
Thank you. Representative of Metro Nashville.
Morning. Lieutenant Michael Vaughn, Metro Nashville Police Department, background recruitment.
Thank you. Can you go over your case investigation on the recruitment and potential hiring of this individual?
Well, the only issue that we came across was the uncharacterized discharge from the military. Everything else in the file was favorable, and we asked for, obviously we want to hire him, but the only thing holding that up was his discharge from the military.
Any questions from the board of representative of the police department? If not, we'll hear from him. Good morning.
Good morning, ladies. Good morning, gentlemen.
Can you kind of describe to the board, I think you've probably heard some previous testimony of what we're looking for, but kind of go over what got you this uncharacterized discharge?
Absolutely. So I graduated high school a little early, in 2017, the end of 2017. I went to a recruiter because I was interested in joining the Marine Corps. I went to boot camp, graduated boot camp, under a squad leader. I was held high honors for myself. After that, came home on 10 days of leave. After 10 days of leave, I went to infantry training battalion in Jacksonville, North Carolina. After that, I was there for about 6 months. I had a relationship fall through. I ran into some issues mentally at the time. I had talked to a counselor who was trying to guide me in the right direction, and me and her came up with the idea that I was also ready to go home. So I decided to get out of the service and go home. And at the time, I thought that I didn't want to do it anymore, and that was obviously a very poor choice as a young man. And obviously, if I could take it back, I would. But here I am now trying to fix my poor decisions from early on as a young man.
Thank you. Questions of the board? Colonel Cherry, recognized.
How long total were you in active duty in the Marine Corps?
Yes, sir, Brent. I was there for 180 days. I was there right at the threshold to where I had to go to a week-long EAS meeting, setting you up for after the service. But I was issued a entry-level separation due to that 180-day threshold.
It's fairly unusual to fight that far and get an uncharacterized discharge. Usually that happens when you're in boot camp and you. Right, absolutely, and I do agree. And people that I've seen before me not make it, and what you're saying is absolutely true. At the time, I was in ITB, and I just fell, due to the circumstances, things adding together, I just wanted to go home. When I got home, I realized very quickly that was not the right choice to make. At the time, it only took about a week to go through that process. And then obviously I had to wait about 2 weeks to get my 5-day letter and then go home. But that quick process, I was excited to go home. I was missing family, friends, and I kind of had no support while I was in the Marine Corps. So I kind of wanted to go home. And when I got home, I realized how bad of a decision that was, and I never should have done it. I further looked into reapplying for the military service, maybe possibly going into the Army to fix my poor history early on. Then I found an opportunity with Metro Police Department, and it has set a fire in me that I could be a positive change to the police department, and I know I would. And I could confidently say that I would exceed in something like this, and it's what I'm supposed to do. Peter, what?
I'm engaged, yes, sir.
Faulkner.
Stated earlier, law enforcement is not an easy profession to choose. And you state in your reason for leaving that you were unmotivated. Metropolitan Nashville Police Academy is no walk in the park. It's not easy, and it shouldn't be, because it's to prepare you to be a good law enforcement officer for the city of Nashville. Do you still feel unmotivated, or have you truly evaluated what you're about to step into?
Absolutely not. I have truly evaluated what I'm going to step into, and I could confidently say that I will breeze through the academy no problem. If there was any way that I can prove it to you, my words aren't enough. So I would happily give, I don't know if there's any extra FTO time if I do complete the academy to prove that I'm worthy of it, or if for whatever reason I did not complete the academy, I will pay whatever the cost was, but I will pass the academy. And I'm 100% motivated and ready to be the best that I could be.
Other questions or comments?
Nope. Commissioner Wright, motion to approve.
Motion and a second to approve. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing no discussion on the motion, I'll indicate by saying aye that approve the motion. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Good luck, son.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mount Juliet Police Department, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Mount Juliet Police Department requests reconsideration of a criminal record waiver for Raymond George Antar, hired November 28, 2022. In February of 2016, Mr. Antar was arrested in Marin County, California for DUI. In March of 2016, Mr. Antar was convicted of the DUI charge and has since satisfied all court-ordered sentencing, fines, and fees.
Thank you. Representatives of Mount Juliet.
Deputy Chief Mullins with Mount Juliet Police Department.
Thank you. Can you go over the situation in this case?
Yes, sir. In the process of us doing Mr. Antar's background check, we did find the DUI. The things that stood out to us in that process was Mr. Antar received his DUI in February of 2016 and immediately took responsibility for his actions, pleading guilty the following month in March of 2016. Mr. Antar did receive a 90-day suspension of his driver's license and a 3-year unsupervised probation, which he completed successfully. At the time of his DUI, he was employed by Sacramento, California County, and completed another 5 years of service after receiving the DUI. We do apologize. This is a reconsideration, and we have learned our lesson from the previous employment of Mr. Antar. After his last post meeting, he was immediately reassigned into a civilian position as administrative assistant in our evidence department. We request that he be eligible for a pre-employment waiver, please.
Questions of the representative of Mount Juliet from the board? General Terry.
So we understand completely, as I understand what you just said, he was serving as a police officer in California when he had the DUI, and then he continued to serve in his role as a police officer for another 5 years before coming to your department?
At the time that Mr. Antar received the DUI, he was assigned to Sacramento County. It was more of a welfare position, not necessarily serving as a road officer in Sacramento County at the time. He did receive a 90-day suspension of his license, but after 30 days received a restricted license so he could return to work. As far as any punishment he received from Sacramento County, I think he received a 40-hour suspension that he served. But then he did serve another 5 years after his DUI.
Was he a certified police officer in California? I guess that's kind of the...
Yes, sir, he was.
Okay.
Other questions, comments, or concerns? Board's wishes with this individual.
I'd like to hear from the applicant.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
The officer said that you accepted responsibility and pled guilty, and in the letter that you wrote, talking about your DUI, it said you pled no contest. So did you accept responsibility or did you not?
I pled nolo contender to my to the offense on the first initial hearing, my arraignment. Yes, it's basically guilty.
I may look at it a little different than no contest is not necessarily I plead guilty.
At the recommendation of my attorney, I pled to nolo contender, but it was on my. I wasn't looking to to fight it, to contest it in any manner, and my initial arraignment, I just went in and was a peace officer for a total of 23 years in California, and this is the only blemish on my career there.
I think the biggest issue we had on your last appearance was the city of Mount Juliet had already employed you, uniformed you, and gunned you up, and it specifically says pre-employment. You kind of left, y'all kind of left the building at Donaldson and with your heads down, and now we've come back to reevaluate the situation, and I think that's what I recall.
Yes,
is that right? Right. Or they got you working down? You said admin. I didn't know if they'd sent you down to parks or somewhere.
No, I've been working in the department as a civilian, helping anywhere I can between records, evidence, anywhere, anything that's needed, unarmed, unbadged, as a civilian.
Commissioner Wright.
Mr. Chair, in due regards, I think it was the department fault last time for sure for already putting him in that position. But if I remember right, I'm probably the one that made the motion on this, and the reason I made the motion is because I do have try to be consistent and have a time frame of when, because we get a lot of DUIs come through here. And to be fair to everybody, a set time that DUI has passed. And I think for different people in here, that time is probably different because we don't have a standard. But with that being said, I'll let anybody else have their role. But my reason for saying that is last time I made the motion was not necessarily because they already brought you in uniform. It was because of the time period for which the DUI had elapsed.
It was 7 years ago, and I understand that's not, I mean, it's been the only blemish. It was the only incident I've ever had involving alcohol that's been any type of negative input to my life. It significantly curbed the way I was drinking and consuming alcohol. Since then, I rarely drink as it is. It's pretty much just at home at dinner. It was my only blemish. I have a decorated career in California, and I'm just seeking to bring that to the state of Tennessee to benefit the community of Mount Juliet and the people here of the great state of Tennessee.
Any other questions, comments? The wishes of the board.
Commissioner Wright, I guess to be consistent, I'll make a motion to disapprove.
Motion to disapprove with a second. Any discussion on the motion? General Terry.
I know for some of you that this may seem to be a shorter period of time. To me, 5 years is about a cutoff. In my mind, I think 10 is too long, and I think particularly when we have a case where a gentleman has been a police officer. This happened when he was a police officer, and that department saw fit to continue his service as a police officer. A little bit story than years ago. Department of this. I don't think it's. Maybe I just need to get closer to that. I'll try that. But I think this is a circumstance where the experience of the officer in question is different than many that we see, and I think that experience can be a benefit to both the department and the law enforcement community in general. And I will vote to, in essence, to allow this officer to continue.
Any other questions or comments?
If I just want to kind of add this is Commissioner Wright too. I know what we're supposed to be saying that every time for the recording part. But, the fact that he was a police officer for 23 years at the time that I kind of put him at a higher standard at that time. Like, should not have put himself in that situation. The way I understand, the department did not put him back to the exact position of being a road officer as it was prior to that.
If I may explain, gentlemen, I was a criminal investigator with the Sacramento County Department of Human Assistance. I was a welfare fraud investigator, sworn peace officer position. I was not a beat cop or road officer. There was no effect on my employment other than being suspended for 40 hours. I returned back as a criminal investigator too. I was since promoted within that department after that. And at that, I have 23 years total experience. At that time, it would have been, 7 years, so 16 years of experience at that point. It may also, please, the alcohol content of my blood was 0.11. As I explained in the previous meeting, I had taken an Uber to a concert, taken an Uber back home, From there, was going to be going to another friend's home because the Super Bowl was in San Francisco that particular weekend. There were not enough Ubers to then exit San Francisco, so I drove 20 miles out to Marin County, had the auxiliary lights on my Jeep on. That's why I got stopped in the rural area of Marin County. I, cooperated and complied with all the officers' field sobriety tests, blew the 1-1. I was arrested, but they felt strongly enough and safe enough to me to where they put handcuffs in front of me, put me in the front seat. I was literally in custody for less than 3 hours before I was released. So, whatever that could be of value, it certainly was. There was no aggravating or anything, to elevate the situation.
Thank you. And I will say that I know in times past we've had kind of a 5-year, and I know that's that. And maybe that's something that the state legislature could help us with. There's a lot of this that could be cleared up if we had some black and white law to give us guidance, because we each have different opinions. I know we have some that are really hard on DUIs. Some of us are really hard on mental health and domestic violence. We all have our pet peeves. That's pretty well seen and known. And then some of us have a real gracious heart. These are difficult matters, and really difficult today in Tennessee.
I apologize for bringing this to the department's attention, to your attention. It's a blemish in my life that obviously I'm still paying for, and I regret ever since that night.
Understand.
Mr. Chairman, I got something. I know we don't have a written time period, and the 5 years has been mentioned, and 7 years or whatever, but at some point, what's enough? I mean, I respect my colleagues over here, and if he waits another year or 2 years, 3 years, are we in the same situation? Just a matter of waiting a little bit. Maybe he should wait a little bit. So I'm one that believes in giving the guy a second chance. I did want to ask you, you were a certified officer in California. How long was there a break between California and Tennessee?
Yes, sir. I retired in November of 21 and applied approximately 10 months later here once I moved my family here to Mount.
Still certified in California now?
Yes, I am.
Now?
Yes.
Just food for thought. I can't disagree with other people, but I feel like at some point in time we should grant a waiver. Whether it's now or a year from now or 6 months from now, I don't know. That's for everybody to make up their mind how I feel about it.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second on the floor to disapprove. Call for the vote. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Roll call.
Commissioner Cherry? No. Commissioner Isbell?
No.
Commissioner Carter? Commissioner Green?
Aye.
Commissioner Jackson?
No.
Commissioner Wagoner? No. Commissioner Wright? Vice Chair Faulkner? Chairman Parton?
No.
Fails.
Motion fails. What's the desire of the board now?
Mr. Cherry, I'll make a motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve. Have a second. Any discussion on that motion? I will go on and say, I know on my time on this board that most of the time it has been about 5 years on these DUIs. And on top of that, this gentleman stayed a certified officer in the state of California. But I do wish we had some better guidance, because it's hard this is hard, Senator Jackson. This is hard. We have it's just thrown in our lap. And I know there's some that's in times past has gotten waivers over convictions with a year, and then some have been denied that's been over 10 years. And I think that's something that we need some clarity on. But we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Roll call again.
Commissioner Cherry. Aye. Commissioner Isbell.
Aye.
Commissioner Carter. Commissioner Green. No. Commissioner Jackson.
Aye.
Commissioner Wagner. Aye. Commissioner Wright. Vice Chair Faulkner. Chairman Parton.
Aye.
It passes.
Don't let us down. Please. Thank you. Moving on to page 4. Waivers to attend another academy, Jackson Police Department.
Jackson Police Department requests a waiver to change academies for Malcolm Dwayne Clark, hired January 8th, 2023. In January of 2022, Mr. Clark attended the Memphis Police Department Training Academy, but did not complete the academy due to a violation of policy for drug use. The agency is requesting the waiver so Mr. Clark may attend the Tennessee Law Enforcement Training Academy in April of 2023.
Good morning. Can you identify and tell us who you are?
Yes, I'm Captain Gary Benton, Jackson Police Department. How are y'all doing this morning?
Good.
Good. Before with me is Malcolm Clark. We're requesting a waiver from the Jackson Police Department for him to attend Toledo. Last year in January 2022, he started the Memphis Police Academy, and towards the last week of the school in June of last year, putting you through the academy, running, stuff starts aching. He went to the store, bought some CBD lotion. As you most are all aware, probably, that stuff is not very well regulated. And we even have our officers that ask us, me as the legal advisor, can we use this stuff? And I always advise them not to use it because we really don't know what is in that stuff. There's no real regulation in that. But he did. He used that. And I reiterate it in service every year, do not go out and use this hemp products that you see in the store. Don't use the CBD or anything like that. There's nothing in our background to indicate he was smoking marijuana or anything like that. He did take a urinalysis and it tested for THC. And I'll let him explain. Obviously, before we hire anyone, we do a drug screen on them. He tested negative at that point. If he would have tested positive, we wouldn't even be here today. If anyone tests positive for drugs during our hiring process, we're not going to hire them. As part of our employment, we do also, City Hall sends out random drug screens that we do for alcohol and drugs. We can also test for cause that if we think someone is using drugs or have a reason to think they may be, we can test them for that. So we do have safeguards in place for that. Currently, he is working in our dispatch. We did go ahead and hire him to try to get him into the system. He's not sworn in yet. We're hoping to do that with a group, him with about 4 or 5 others Tuesday. Monday's a holiday for us. But we're wanting to get him sworn in Tuesday. He's been working in our dispatch to kind of see what the background is on getting the calls to the officers. And our head of dispatch has said him and the other employee is doing a great job over there. So if you have any questions of me, I'd be glad to answer them. If not, Mr. Clark will be glad to answer any questions that y'all have.
Any questions of the board? Jackson PD. General Chair, you recognize.
In your investigation and looking into this, CBD is a relatively new kind of thing. In my past, I was a Marine Corps lawyer for a long time and dealt a lot with people's different claims they had when they popped positive on urinalysis and everything from passive inhalation to somebody put it in my food. And we heard a claim like that yesterday with somebody that came before us. As far as CBD lotion, a lot of those CBD products, I think they're getting more and more common. But I'm curious, in your investigation, did you talk to any experts, any chemists, or any Anybody from the field of chemistry or medicine that could talk to you about how CBD lotion might show up in a urinalysis, the levels that they test for and things like that?
I have not with this individual. We have talked to him in the past, and they said that if what is on the package, if it says it's within the legal limits, you may still pop positive. But if it's the levels are way above what's in the lotion or gummies or whatever it is, that you could test positive, especially if it is not CBD or hemp, if it is marijuana. And like I said, there's really no regulation out here on these products nowadays. I know they're looking at trying to get something in place to regulate it, but who is going to do that? That's kind of where they're to get that ball in the right hole, I guess.
The test, do you know if the test that Memphis gave him was just a positive negative test? It didn't do a quantified percentage. I mean, it's hard. Was it a urine test? Okay, so that's just a positive negative test.
Right. I was not even able to get any of the numbers like what we see. Yes. Yeah. Nothing. No technical stuff. And
that CBD will show up. I mean, even if it's under 0.02% THC, it's still going to show up. If you've used, especially if you've lathered yourself up and it's soaked in, there's a good chance you're going to test positive. Senator Jackson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And when we passed that law, it had to be under a certain THC level, and whether it's should be regulated, but it may, some others may come in that are not looking to regulate. But that's the law we passed.
And that's right, and that's what it's under. Your percentage of THC is 0.02%, but in the test he took, it wouldn't matter. If he just had a trace amount, it would indicate positive on the test. So he could have been under the legal amount of THC, under 0.02, but in the test, that's what we run into in the drug-free workplace, and that's what we've explained during these battles at the legislature, is that we're going to run into more and more of this, not only in law enforcement and fire, but in professors at universities. Where any of us agencies, particularly government agencies that have the drug-free workplace, any indication, any of it is going to be a problem. So moving forward, keep that in mind. But I get it. It's just positive, negative hit. Any other questions or concerns? Sir, would you like to address the board?
Yes, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, I just wanted to say before you make your decision, I've wanted to be a police officer since I was 13. I've geared my life to be able to be a police officer. When I first came into high school, I made sure that I kept my record clean, that the only thing that's on my record right now is a speeding ticket from when I was 15, and it's 7 over. But going to college, I became a criminal justice major with being a police officer in mind. I have a godfather who's a captain of the Detroit Police Department. I have a stepfather who's a detective with the Warren County Police Department. I've been surrounded with and immersed in just full of police. And I've always wanted to be able to help, be able to go out and do something, be better, and help someone be better. That's all. Thank you.
Yes, Chief Faulkner.
Have you found an alternative to use when you have aches and pains?
Yes, ma'am. Usually I use now BioFreeze, which is a much better alternative. BioFreeze, I usually use it for my knees because I did have I shattered my growth plate in this knee and have a torn ligament in this one. So I did use that now, but at the point when I was using the CBD, well, when I used the CBD, it was a temporary.
One of the references was one of the training officers at the academy, and he said that Mr. Clark was a leader in that group. He didn't seem arrogant or anything like that, and that had he passed the academy, he would have been proud to serve with him as an officer. Like I said, he of the 960 hours that he was needing to complete the academy, he completed 928, and they, like I said, that last week is when they gave him the random, and that's when this popped up, and the last days of the academy. So he could see the finish line, he just couldn't get there.
Captain, is he in your pre-academy program that y'all have at Jackson PD?
We got together with the state doing the apprenticeship program, and so we're trying to get the people that want to be officers. If we can't hire them to get a group together and schedule it to go to the academy, we're trying to get them into that apprenticeship program and get them doing other things so we can get a hold of them and not lose them to some other agency who will hire them right then and get them doing something else.
I know looking at about a 5-year span of academy enrollment and completion, Jackson has a very high completion rate for Toledo. And one of those things that we've heard is that you have a very rigorous pre-academy physical fitness and training program before they get to our academy. Will he be enrolled in that before he attends the class?
Yes, that will start Tuesday.
Okay.
That's the day after, the day they swear in. The next day they start that whole orientation, which is about 10 weeks or so, or 12 weeks. It's until we can get them into that next academy group.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, well, I appreciate you recognizing, that we do that before they come to the academy. We try to make it easy on the transition from the civilian world to the academy world as easy as possible.
Will you and your team be evaluating his health and his health throughout that pre-academy, because that is tough. It is as tough, from what I understand, as what we do, just to make sure that he's physically capable of doing what we ask at the academy without too much pain and need for any kind of supplement or whatever for pain.
Yes, absolutely. We've started as part of their most every day, as part of their daily routine, either before work or after work, they come in and do some kind of PT with our instructors. So we're trying to get them in that regimen of getting up in the morning, coming, doing your PT, then start your work day.
Thank you.
Chairman, I'm going to recuse myself from this vote.
Yes, sir, Senator. Any other discussion or questions, comments? If not, what's the board?
Make a motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve.
Second.
Have a second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Have one no. Motion carries. Thank you and good luck, sir.
Thank you. And may I say, I appreciate y'all thinking about having maybe a set timeline on the waivers for DUIs and stuff like that. That would make a lot easier for the police departments of knowing, hey, some people get in with a 5, some people take 7. It would just make it easier when we're doing the background. But I'd just like to maybe looking at
it could be also something when we get time, we're supposed to go through and have a good house cleaning of our post rules.
Right.
And we could implement it there if the state legislature doesn't implement it for us.
And that would be fine too. Is we knew black and white, this is what we can get a waiver for, and this is the time frame on it. And that way we could tell our applicants, you can't get it this year, but next year we shouldn't have any problem with it.
And then we have to deal, on a case by case basis, because a lot of times we want to know what happened during that arrest.
I don't blame you too.
What was the attitude?
I would have a caveat of we
Right.
can still go outside this if we need to.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Good
Have a
luck.
good day.
All right, moving on to waiver of basic training, specialized substitutions for in-service training. Oak Ridge Police Department requests the Post Commission's approval to forego transition school for James Gregory Coker, hired January 9th, 2023. Mr. Coker's last date of full-time law enforcement service was March 31st, 2016. I believe they're appearing by Zoom.
Anybody with Oak Ridge appearing this morning?
Yeah, we're here. I'm Lieutenant Ray Stakeley with Oak Ridge. I'm over training and patrol, and I'm here with James Coker.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Coker, can you, it looks like you were hired in January of this year, and your last date of full-time law enforcement was March of 16. What have you been doing since in the meantime between 2016 and now?
Well, sir, first I'd like to thank the Commission for hearing my request for waiver. So after doing a little over 26 years with Knoxville, with the police department,
when I was eligible for retirement, I had an opportunity to go to work for the Law Enforcement Innovation Center. And as having been involved in training at the police department, it was a fantastic opportunity for me to transition to a full-time training job. And while I wasn't associated directly with law enforcement activity, I stayed intimately connected to law enforcement agencies, leaders, training officers. The people who were in our classes were all sworn law enforcement officers. I maintained this to keep my knowledge base up, to understand current trends as I developed and delivered training both across the state and nationally. The last year I was there, was in several states. The travel, it was a fantastic opportunity. I enjoyed what I did. The travel caused me to be away from my family to a level that I've decided to leave LEIC. I went to work for the last little over a year teaching criminal justice at Gibbs High School, where it was no less of a connection to law enforcement. And in fact, two of my classes were run very much like my criminal justice 2 class followed a model that actually comes out of Toledo and is the requirement across the state for police academies, as I put my students through exposure to both state law, policies and procedures of various departments, help them to understand officer safety. We did traffic stops. And so I continued to maintain for this last year, away from active law enforcement, a close working knowledge of laws, policies, procedures, and the things that officers go through. The transition from there was because once I left training actual law enforcement officers, I realized that the only reason it was okay for me to retire from KPD was because I still had that close contact. I was fortunate enough to be able to come here to Oak Ridge and them have a position for me, and now I will be able to return to training law enforcement officers, and I just won't have to travel quite as much. So I'm excited to be back, and I'm really hoping that the commission will see fit to approve this waiver for the transition course.
Okay, thank you. So basically in all that you've said, you've been a full-time training officer?
Yes, sir. Full-time training officer since retirement.
Okay, that's what I was looking for. Any other questions?
I'm going to recuse myself from voting, but while at UT, he attended 32 hours of mandated training, and I know as a retired officer with the Knoxville Police Department, he completed his firearms each year. So as far as meeting some post standards of in-service training, he would have completed some of that through his work with the University of Tennessee. But I won't vote on this.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board?
Mr. Isbell, just say he's in uniform. What is your current position right now?
My current position right now is technically as police officer. I am not engaged in any enforcement activity, waiting on some more equipment so I can begin a field training exposure, and then waiting on the results of this waiver to see if I'll be in the transition course or we'll go right into training with officers. What the plan is here at Oak Ridge is for me to transition into Lieutenant Stakely's position and lighten his load a little bit, and I will be the GDI here at the Oak Ridge Police Department.
Other questions? Entertain a motion to board's wishes.
Motion to approve. I don't see, he's been involved in law enforcement ever since he retired. I know where he come from. I know where he's at now. Really don't see, although I'm sure he would make it just fine, but I'll make a motion that we approve it.
Have a motion and a second to approve. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Here are 2 noes, but I'm going to be safe and have a roll call.
Commissioner Cherry. Commissioner Isbell.
No.
Commissioner Carter. Commissioner Green. Commissioner Jackson. Commissioner Wagoner. Commissioner Wright. Vice Chair Faulkner. Chairman Parton.
I vote aye.
The ayes have it.
Thank you, and good luck.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to page 5.
Post-reviewed and administratively approved 22 for post-transition school waivers, and all corresponding supporting documents appeared to be in order and meet or exceed the minimum standards as set forth by the Peace Officer Standards and Training Commission requirements. And you can see the list here. We will dispatch with reading that. Wanted to give the board also just a brief note here that we are full for our February transition class that starts, I believe, next week. Is that correct, Investigator Cooper? Week after next. And then we have, we're more than halfway full for our March class right now at 18. So
Are you still doing any remote? Still doing a lot of remote transition and then coming for driving and shooting? Okay. Okay. Still have a lot of questions, and I know sometimes there's some that show up and do it all in person, and then some are remote link. Okay.
How many people in those classes?
We cap it right now at 30, and the reason for that is we added an 8-hour DUI. The irony of having those discussions in here, we added an 8-hour DUI block that includes a wet lab. So the transition students, when they come in, will be exposed to actually administering standardized field sobriety testing. So that's the primary reason why we wouldn't go at 50. I mean, we can increase the size of the class if we need to, but right now we don't have a significant waiting list. So, like I said, February is full. We've got 18 in the March, in the upcoming March class as well. And we probably should have a discussion at the end too about the request for solo patrol, since we are doing a monthly transition school right now and have the ability to get people into transition school pretty quickly. But anyway, I apologize for adding that into the agenda or interjecting that. So. In addition to post-reviewed and administratively approved 2 solo requests as well, and these are based on the expiration of the emergency orders from the governor, and those officers that are listed here on page 5 will be permitted to patrol on their own until such time as they complete transition school.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments on those? And we also will state listed names for the record on both sections there. So moving on to page 6, I think we're administrative waivers of in-service. I think we have the University of Memphis Police Department, Public Safety.
University of Memphis Police Department, Public Safety requests a waiver of in-service for Kelly Ann Straub, hired September 18th, 2006. Ms. Straub completed 40 hours of in-service training, but due to an on-duty accident was unable to complete the community immersion mandate for the 2022 calendar year. The waiver will allow both the agency and the officer to remain in compliance with post regulations.
Okay, now I've got a question on this. This is the first one we've ever had with this community inclusion mandate. And I know that was part of the administrative side of it. Community immersion, you can't test for. So I want to know why this is on here. This was an administrative deal that we voted on, that the department would say that those individual officers would have community inclusion. Is that my understanding?
Mr. Wagner, question is, did Ms. Straub, she employed in 2022, did she work the whole year, or was she out all year? She wasn't there, she couldn't do the community immersion, but if she worked, it may just be an accounting thing.
Is the University of Memphis online on Zoom, or are they in person?
University of Memphis, are you online this morning? No. Okay.
In other words, if she's on duty, she's working, possibility that it didn't get counted right.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Wright, or it may even be, still some of not understanding what we would allow in that, because surely being on the University of Memphis campus, there's enough vehicles you could jump off to gain community immersion.
So, and that's what I said. I don't want to start going down this alley with the community immersion. Is, you know, we've had this discussion. We're all working in our departments doing, trust me, everything we can do to keep us in good light with our communities, as difficult as it is. But still, for in-services, there is no testing model. How do I test for being kind? How do I test for doing good social things? How do we test? What's the test question for that? So I don't want somebody's department to lose their in-service or individuals when it's left on us administrators to say, we've done this. Is that right?
Well, one note too, the University of Memphis Police Department, the officers there are not eligible for salary supplement because they're state officers. And I would just note too that the injury on duty occurred November 28, 2022, almost a full 11 months into the year.
So what's your advice on this, Mr. Director?
Possibility we get somebody on the phone and find out. You can get these waivers.
So in this matter, they're saying that this individual officer didn't stop and help somebody fix a flat tire the whole year. They're saying that this officer did not go to some community-oriented event.
Well, and that might be why it's worth, Chairman, for University of Memphis to appear.
Yeah. I'm going to make a motion to keep the department in compliance and get the officer here to appear, because, you know, this is a road we're going to run down with this particular item. You know, we can ask, well, did you go to right control training? Did you do, you know, use of force so many hours and in service? But I can't. This community inclusion portion, I knew we would run into this.
Would you be amenable to a motion to perhaps put this off to the next month until Memphis can appear?
Absolutely. I'll make a motion to put it off next month, get everybody here and see what's going on with this. Have a second. Any discussion on the motion?
I agree with everything the chair has said. We've got to be cautious as we deal with these. I'm a little more concerned about why we don't have an agency here to represent themselves in something like this. Is notification given? Is it required of them to be either present or online? There's the issue for me. Why they're not here. We're having to kick it down the road next time.
I agree. And plus, you know, if I was agency, I'd want to make sure that we're always in compliance. But, you know, with this model and with this mandate of this particular thing, I knew we would run into this, and it is still confusing to our agencies. I don't think the agencies in the state are totally clear of these mandates and how they're to be construed. But again, with this particular community immersion mandate, there is no testing for that for in-service. You can, unless somebody at the academy or my coworkers here can tell me, there's no test for it.
I'm not sure how we would test for that.
Exactly. How do you can instruct it and you can encourage it and say, hey, cadets, while we're in the basic, this is what you need to do. Smile, be nice, and help people cross the road. Help little doggies and puppies, and give big high fives, and show that you love people.
I have a question on the compliance of the department. Is there a penalty if they're not in compliance for another month?
I think if we all sit right here and agree that we're gonna waive this until we get them here,
I'm saying that.
yeah.
Is that your motion?
There won't be a penalty for them to wait for this waiver to be heard, next month.
Because I think I'm like the rest of you, I think they should be here and explain why they didn't account it right or what the thinking was.
Well, I mean, what I'm saying is this is not this is reportable as a whole, not for the individual officers. In other words, that's all the University of Memphis had to do to report the in-service and say, our officers have done X amount of thousands of hours, we've done this, and we've participated with this, and this. Unless there's something else going on and reporting to y'all at post that we're not hearing about.
University of Memphis should be the easiest place to get this part of the in-service.
Absolutely.
And she's got two hours to do this year.
So
we need
what
to know.
What was the trend? So what's the trend you're seeing, Ralph, on the reporting of this, particularly with community immersion?
As far as people reporting it?
Yeah, in the CADIS or on the sheets, are they putting everybody down as individuals, or are they just saying our department is in compliance?
So they send us a roster just like they would for any other in-service training,
Right.
saying these individuals completed these hours of community immersion, and it goes in and it gives them credit for completing those hours of in-service training.
And what we're doing, for example, for undercover officers, is everybody is put in as having completed it, and there would just be like a memorandum in that officer's file stating that they did not complete it because they're, for obvious reasons. For larger agencies, it would be difficult to figure out, who those people were. At a smaller agency and smaller communities, it would be very easy to figure out, well, why didn't, that officer out of the 20 do the community immersion? So, but it
might have been because this officer, I don't know what their sickness or injury was, on duty accident. So, they might have had a car wreck and been in the hospital for several months. We don't know, but
I think the file indicates that they did have a car accident, but it was in November at the end of the year.
Well, and we have been very, I'd like to think we've been very clear in letting agencies know what constitutes community immersion, community involvement, which is that whatever the chief or the sheriff believes constitutes community involvement, that's what constitutes community involvement. So we defer to the chief executives of each agency to determine what qualifies for that. So, perhaps Memphis comes in front of us and they realize that, this particular officer had done 4 hours of this throughout the year, and they just were somehow confused on that. But without them here, it's hard to know.
Okay. All right.
Make a motion, we pass.
Have a motion to pass. I've already got I haven't made this second on that motion. All right, to pass. Any more discussion? Sorry for the confusion. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
University of Tennessee Knoxville Police Department requests a waiver of in-service for Madeline Elizabeth Tim, hired April 25th, 2022. Ms. Tim was unable to complete the required in-service training for the 2022 calendar year due to medical reasons. The waiver will allow both the agency and the officer to remain in compliance with post guidelines.
Anybody representing University of Tennessee this morning?
Yes, sir. We're online this morning.
Good morning. Can you identify yourself and explain what's going on? Thank you.
Yes, sir. Sergeant Lindsay Gardner, overtraining with UT Police. Officer Tim was in FTO beginning of last year when she notified us in June that she was pregnant. At that time, she had not completed all of her in-service, and because she was in FTO and not a functioning officer, she was moved to a non-commissioned position in our dispatch until she completed her pregnancy and maternity leave, and she has just recently returned from maternity leave and been placed back as an officer.
So she's back at work now?
Yes, sir.
How much of her in-service does she like, or is it all of it?
She completed, I believe, 24 hours last year before she advised us that she was pregnant. And most of what she missed was the actual more physical portions, firearms. We actually do driving for EVOC and defensive tactics.
Okay. Any questions of the board?
Commissioner Wright, Sergeant, when is she scheduled for in-service training this year? She scheduled yet?
So, yes, sir. We do our in-service some monthly, but she'll be going in April to finish her 2023 in-service. And we are going to get her requalified prior to that.
Anything else?
Motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve. Have a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Waivers of 6-month rule. Similar Police Department requests a 6-month waiver for April Diane Lloyd, hired September 9th, 2022. Ms. Lloyd attended the Tennessee Law Enforcement Training Academy in January of 23, but was unable to complete training due to medical complications. If medically cleared, Ms. Lloyd is scheduled to reattend the Tennessee Law Enforcement Training Academy in April 2023.
Motion to approve. Have a motion to approve in a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Moving on to page 7.
Waivers for medical. Lafayette, Police Department requests a waiver of in-service for David Clint Heston, hired September 6, 1994. On June 1, 2022, Mr. Heston was placed on medical leave and was unable to complete the required in-service training for the 2022 calendar year. The waiver will allow both the agency and the officer to remain in compliance with post guidelines.
Is Lafayette on this morning?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Okay. Can you talk to us a little bit this morning about the situation?
Yes, sir. My name is Sergeant Matt Looper. I'm the GDI with the Lafayette Police Department. Thank you for allowing me to come on today. And Lieutenant Heston, he is scheduled to retire this coming June. Unfortunately, last June, he had found out that he was diagnosed with cancer, and he's been in dealing with that for the last few months and going to treatment and stuff like that. So he is has enough sick time to carry him through till this coming June, and that's why we were asking for the medical waiver.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of the board?
Right, motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve. Second. Have a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, next up, Pigeon Forge Police Department requests a waiver of in-service for Michelle Jane Brown, hired July 9th, 1995. On December 31st, Ms. Brown was placed on medical leave and was unable to complete the required in-service training for the 2022 calendar year. Ms. Brown has since retired as of January 9th, 2023. The waiver will allow both the agency and the officer to remain in compliance with post guidelines.
Thank you. Anybody with Pigeon Forge Police Department online this morning? You did Pigeon Forge. Is that them sitting there? I can barely see from this angle. Pigeon Forge, I think you're still muted, if you can hear us.
How about now?
You sound loud and clear from Pigeon Forge, Tennessee.
Chief Catlett here. Good morning. I'm Sergeant Gary Ott, our training officer is here. So Officer Michelle Brown had a off-duty accident in early December of 2020, and as it states there, she has since retired January the 9th of this year.
Okay. Any questions? Thank you. Any questions from the board reference Ms. Brown? What? Entertain a motion.
Check on that, Ralph.
No.
Should have been in our 21 calendar somewhere, shouldn't it, Commissioner Wright?
Yes, there was a waiver last year for her as well.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion, motion and a second to approve. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Moving on down with, Pigeon Forge with, Mr. Rodney Robert Cars.
Rodney Robert Carr, hired September 8, 1986, November 4th, 2021. Mr. Carr was placed on medical leave and was unable to complete the required in-service training for the 2022 calendar year. The waiver will allow both the agency and the officer to remain in compliance with post guidelines.
You're up again, Pigeon Forge.
Yes, sir. Sergeant Carr, he has been out since November the 4th of 2021. We actually got a waiver for that year as well. He is set to retire next week, actually.
Okay, any questions of the board? Have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion for the waiver indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries.
And finally, from the Pigeon Forge Police Department, they're requesting a waiver of in-service for Lynn Joseph Miller, hired August 1st, 2005. On January 1st, 2022, Mr. Miller was placed on medical leave and was unable to complete the required in-service training for the 2022 calendar year. The waiver will allow both the agency and the officer to remain in compliance with post guidelines.
Pigeon Forge, one more time.
Yes, sir. Officer Miller, he left, he went on medical leave last year around January the 13th, and it was subsequently transferred over to FMLA and then to long-term disability. He has since been separated from the department January the 26th of this year.
Okay, any questions of the board? Have a motion to approve the waiver. Have a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you, and have a good day, Pigeon Forge. Yes.
All right, Commissioners, just an update on waivers for military leave. Post reviewed and administratively approved one military waiver with corresponding supporting documents. Everything appeared to be in order and neither met or exceeded the minimum standards set forth by this commission. Moving on to applications for training officer, Post investigators reviewed and approved 11 applications for training officer. They appear to meet the criteria for approval. We only had one that has informed they have 1 year to complete instructor development, and that's going to be Jonathan Blaine Max. And we need a
motion to approve. Any discussion? If not, I'll indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries.
Moving on to applications for certified instructor on page 9. Post investigators reviewed and approved 30 applications for certified instructor, appear to be in order and meet the minimum standards, and they've completed the minimum hours and attendance for required courses. No one required a 1 year instructor development or substitute waiver, and we did have several, and you can see on the list, which we'll provide for the record, require a waiver of the 1 year training officer requirement.
Any discussion? Hearing none, indicate, accept a motion to approve. Have a motion, second. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
And moving on, curriculum and tests. Post investigators have reviewed and approved 377 in-service and specialized training classes this month. They appear to be in order and neither meet or exceed minimum standards set forth by this commission. They made a note of these particular training offerings meet post requirements for mandated topics.
Any discussion? That's quite a few, 377. Have a motion to approve. Do I hear a second? Have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And going on to the final page of 10. Old business, none. New business.
New business, we have a post-investigative report. We have a follow-up investigation of an in-service waiver request and termination of Billy Joe Langford, the Harriman Police Department.
More discussion on that?
I believe we have investigative report.
We assigned that investigation follow-up to one of our new investigators, Bruce Cantrell, and he's going to give you an update on what he found.
I should have invited you up to the podium, Bruce. That's my fault.
I'll invite you. You're welcome to the podium.
Thank you, Chairman.
Go ahead.
So during my investigation, I spoke with the GDI from Soddy Daisy Police Department about the termination of Officer Langford. The documents that he sent me were two statements that were typed up by the chief. About one of them was a one-on-one counseling with Officer Langford for multiple reasons, including violation of the take-home car policy, and violation of the appearance policy. He did tell, according to the statement, he did tell Officer Langford in the meeting that if it had to be addressed again, there would be disciplinary action. The incident that happened that led up to the termination started with Officer Langford not showing up for court one day. A sergeant noticed he wasn't there, and he had several cases pending that day. The sergeant brought it up to the lieutenant, who eventually worded it up to the chief, and the chief asked the lieutenant to pull up his AVL to see if he was using his car. And it was found that he was well outside of the policy as far as the mileage outside of the city. I don't remember the exact mileage, but they pulled him into the office. It was the chief, I believe 2 lieutenants, and Officer Langford. And according to the statement that the chief had wrote out, Officer Langford had lied about either not knowing or not remembering that he violated the policy, because there was 6 incidents documented by his AVL where he violated the policy. He either lied saying he didn't remember it or he didn't know anything about it. And when the chief finally told him, when I ask you a direct question, I expect a truthful, direct answer. And he said that was when Officer Langford finally admitted that he did violate the policy. And so they immediately terminated him. The chief told him to clean out his car and return all of his issued equipment back to the agency. Right after that, Officer Langford called the chief at Graysville Police Department, and I spoke with him, and he said he has never known of Officer Langford to lie about anything. However, he would not put him in any sort of supervisory position because you have to stay on him about things. And he was at Graysville Police Department, I believe, 6 months, and then went to Harriman Police Department.
Refresh me. I remember this being on our docket. And what was the initial request?
It was for an in-service waiver because he had not completed in-service. And
because he had bounced from these multiple departments, but he had had a termination. I think we asked some questions that got down to the root cause of the problem.
But he freely stated that the reason why he did not complete in-service because he had been terminated from that department. So, yes.
Which basically could have been issued for C-cert.
And if I remember correctly, the department did not have him in there.
That was my mistake. We were, Assistant Director Bello and I was asking him about a particular department. He was answering I did not ask for the right department. So the mistake was mine. The Saudi Daisy reported that termination correctly through ACADIS. And so there was nothing that was hidden or wasn't reported to us prior to him being reported or hired by Harriman.
So what's the current department that's wanting to employ him?
Harriman PD currently employs this officer, at least did as of the last time that we saw them in front of us for that in-service waiver.
And so if they've got him employed and he's wanting to,
and they were aware. They stated in the meeting that they were aware. They just wanted to, I think, give him a chance. That paraphrasing, but
yeah.
As an update, he's still showing that he's employed with Harriman and has already completed about 60 hours of in-service training for this calendar year.
Well, at the worst, and this is one of those I'm trying to wrap my brain around again, but if we don't give the waiver, how does that affect where he's at now?
So this investigative report is not necessarily the request for the in-service waiver is not in front of the commission today. What the commission and what y'all will need to decide today with this report is to either do nothing with it, and then we can put the in-service waiver back on the agenda and we can hear that, or this commission could vote today to refer this to an informal for decertification.
I think we had an issue of the line. He just flat out lied to his departments. I'm gonna make a motion to go to informal. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? You can report back to them if you need to, or however you want to do it, but get them on the agenda for some time for an informal hearing. We're gonna get to the bottom of this.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Highway Patrol.
Next up, our final matter this morning under new business, Tennessee Highway Patrol Training Center requests approval of their 2022 annual report.
A motion to approve. Have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Hearing none, they are approved.
If I may, Chairman, I'd like to brag on our team at Post for just a second. Assistant Director Bello and Supervisor 2, Kat Cooper, specifically Kat Cooper with regard to the electronic salary supplement submission. Just so the commission knows, we would spend January's opening mail in years gone by, right? Because everything for the salary supplement came in hard copy. And now we started receiving these. Kat, how many have we received electronically? 106 electronic submissions. We sent requests for batch payment to F&A in January to start paying agencies salary supplement. In the past, we've still been opening mail and creating hard copy files in January. And now with this being optional, we've been able to start paying agencies or submitting agencies for payment in January. So this has been very efficient process. And I just want to brag on our team because the work that they've done to bring the salary supplement request process into the 21st century it's been a heavy lift. It's taken a lot of meetings. It's taken a lot of work. Matter of fact, I don't know if y'all know this, but Ms. Cooper put herself through college, through an advanced program in computer science, correct? In order to be able to complete this project, and that was at no cost to the state of Tennessee. So just wanted to brag on our team and talk about the job that they do and everybody at Post. You know, I mean, Lakita's sitting right in front of me. I mean, how many thousands of applications do you touch, you know, that come through? And our team just works very hard. And I just wanted to brag on them for a second and say in this public forum, great job and keep up the good work.
I'll say the same and commend and say thank you. And with this as a sheriff with this, in-service supplement being able to go on electronically helps when all those deputies come around the corner and go 25,000 times a day starting January 1. Have those in-service checks come in yet? It goes on and on and on. Those of you that have been around know that. And thank you to the Peanut Gallery in the back left-hand corner. We didn't want to leave you out today. So anyway, any other business? It's been nice being here. It's kind of different. So
I have,
yes, Chief.
I think we've heard today, and I know I keep harping on it, but we need to have a rules committee meeting. Maybe we can pick some dates and get it on people's calendar to see who matches up. I'm even willing to host it if you want to do it in Franklin. I'll have breakfast and lunch and whatever. But I think we've heard it from our customers today, and on behalf of the chiefs, I think I can say that we all want some clarity in the rules. And as a member of this commission, which I'm honored to be, I want to see some clarity so that I'm clear on what I'm voting for and that I'm doing the right thing. Because this is, I think all of us sitting here take this very to heart, and we want to do the work of the state of Tennessee. And more importantly, we want our profession to be the best it can be. And we know we have some issues and we need to get ahead of it. So I just wanted to put it out there for discussion at some point and maybe some dates. I don't even know who's on the committee anymore, but I think we're all interested in making sure that we do the work of the Post Commission to the best of our ability.
If I could add to that as well, Director said something earlier about maybe having a retreat for all of us to kind of dive into this. I don't know if it just needs to be a committee or all of us involved. I would be more in favor for everybody than I would be.
I just didn't know who'd volunteered to do that.
Well, if we volunteer everybody, we don't give them an option.
I'm used to that.
Because there definitely is some things that we need to get. That's the biggest thing that bothers me about this commission, and several of you heard me vent about it this week, is the non-consistency of the results that we let out, and with things that's happened in the state of Tennessee, we've got a lot of decertifications going on, and a lot of that's from lowering standards of hire, and I think that's something we need to look at as well. What can we possibly do as a commission to put in place for pre-employment to maybe minimize some of this? It may restrain the departments from hiring some people that they want to, but at the same time, it may keep us from having some of the situations we've been having here lately. And after this is over, I got a non-CBD discussion I want to have too, please.
Senator Jackson.
Just to let you know, if there's anything that needs to be done legislatively, I know Representative or Commissioner Halsey and Russell and myself be glad to do anything.
It might be good for y'all to discuss it. I would like to hear, just food for thought through some of the judicial committees if they're getting questions. If somebody has been arrested, or a police officer, trooper, or whatever's been arrested and tries to come back, what's the state's thoughts from your section? There's some that's total zero forever. I get it. I just, yeah, and I'm just kind of in the middle here, and I take everything case by case, situation by situation. There's people that mess up. There's a whole lot of military stuff that mess up. And I still stand by that. Every one of these waivers for academies, waivers for transition schools, I take every one of those individually. I want to hear what they've been doing, what's their association to law enforcement, because there's just like the deal this morning. This guy's been teaching us. And we send people up there every year. That's full-time interaction with law enforcement. So they have gotten this by osmosis somewhere. But those that have left and went to drive a forklift for 15 years and haven't been around a law enforcement officer, then I can see that they need transition or the academy, but yes, I agree. We need to have, we need to be locked down in a room somewhere and go through these rules, at some location at some time. So we look at that, and then I hope you're good with that.
Certainly, and I think Commissioner Wright, you and I spoke about the waiver thing the last 2 days. I know you and I have spoken, and I think that the hard part is that every single one of these that comes in front of us is a different. There's different different circumstances with each of those. And just to use DUI, there's different circumstances with each of those DUI arrests. And I'm not saying that we should approve or shouldn't approve. That's for the commission to decide. And there's differences in the people that come in front of us and their attitudes and the way that they, view what has happened in the past. I've never been arrested, detained, pulled over, anything for DUI. But I would assume that, if I, as an officer, can remember what somebody's BAC was, that I arrested 6 months ago, then somebody who's had the worst day of their life and been arrested for DUI would be able to say what their BAC was. So some people come in front of us and they seem to be more honest, or have a better attitude about it. And so I think that's what makes it tough, and to be tough in y'all's position, as commissioners having to make these decisions. But I'm just grateful for y'all being willing to sit on this commission and be able to make these hard decisions. I do agree that we need to look at the rules, and one of the things that Chief Faulkner, you and I can talk about offline as well, in my capacity as director, and your capacity as president of TACP, and we'll get with TSA, is to get some chiefs and sheriffs together in a room to talk about this as well, so that we can have perhaps some guidance when we go into those rules committee hearings here at Post, and kind of have an idea about where we want to go when we get into the room from our stakeholders, because the input from our chiefs and our sheriffs is really vital, and means everything to me.
I appreciate that. And just two quick things, since I seem to be on the bad girl list, or mean girl, I don't care. But
not with us.
When our officers in Franklin make a major arrest, the first thing a defense attorney does is do a public records request and ask for their history and their backgrounds and their disciplinary and their training. And if I've got an officer, which I don't, who has a DUI or a theft or something like that, it's going to pop up. It happens. I see them every day. And they try to use that against the officer to discredit them. So I'm very mindful of that. The second thing, and I'll just say this quickly, I have to look in the face a lieutenant who lost his son to a drunk driver who was a police officer. And that's in my heart and my mind every time I sit here. You've done this, you could have hurt someone, and I'm very mindful of that. This is serious business, this driving under the influence. So, I'm willing to be cooperative. But that's what's in my mind when I look at these things.
We understand it. We get it. It's we've been saying this for the last 4 years. We're reaching further down in the barrel for law enforcement, and I think unfortunately we tragically have seen that in the last few weeks or months. I don't like Tennessee having national recognition in a negative light, but that's what's happened across the nation as well. It's not only us, it's everybody, and we're not the profession that we used to be or recognized to be, and I don't know what we do to change it.
Can we kind of maybe just send a tentative for next month after our regular, if we don't have anything behind it, or maybe break for lunch and then everybody reconvene, or we can all book a place and go eat lunch and do it all at one time, or do it on the Thursday of the informal afternoon, something?
We were going to have a post that we're still tentatively thinking about doing one at Franklin at the TSA meeting, and that's which one were you? June, and then one at
we still like to do that, yeah.
Okay. And yeah, I mean that's whatever works on the executive director's schedule. I mean, there's never a good time. We just got to do it. We got to bail off in it.
You know, we're seeing, and I know we have our assistant director rather out at, you call it the Peanut Gallery, which is different than our normal meeting place because I think I need to either have glasses or binoculars to see the back row. But you know, he's over our training operation at the Law Enforcement Training Academy, and we've seen a difference in the you know, types of cadets that come through. You know, and it's not that there's necessarily a lowering of standards of who's there, but it's different. Generationally, it's different. You know, we have a lot of conversations at the academy, you know, related to that. And if our profession, if we think it is hard to recruit now, which it is, and we see this at Post, we see this with the numbers and the turnover. You know, obviously the governor sees it because we've got a bonus program coming up for recruiting and retention that we hope to have rolled out, hopefully in May, have that available to agencies where it's, you know, 10,000 for certified officers and 8,000 over 3 years for non-certified. If we lower our standards and we hire the wrong people into our profession, and we have incidents that occur because of what those folks have done, it's going to be even harder to recruit. And I want to say also on the public record that the cadets that we have coming into the Law Enforcement Training Academy today and that attend all the municipal and sheriff's office academies and the 2 community college academies in East Tennessee, these are cadets that have decided, in the face of all of the negativity surrounding our profession in the media and just floating around, they made the decision to do this job knowing that. And I'm very grateful to them for wanting to pick up the torch and move forward. But there are a lot of pressing issues facing our profession and facing law enforcement in general. And our commission, I think, is poised to be in a position to, you know, have a positive effect on those things.
Okay. Anything else? We would look at some email dates in discussion. Is everybody good with them getting back to the office and kind of looking where they're at and what they've got going on with annual leaves and whatnot, and then emailing us out as a group and saying, hey, we can just dive off into the rules? Or do you want to make that decision today before we leave?
Ms. Taylor's put together a calendar that we can set out to you guys that has the TACP and TSA dates on there, and it shows the informals and formal hearings and the other dates that we've already set. I think there's some formal hearing dates already set for April and October of this year. Those should be on the calendar. So we can send that out, let you guys kind of look at that and get back to us. And I think for the June and September dates, there's possibly going to be a conflict with TACP and TSA.
I think a lot of this would be over on legal too, because I mean we need them in the room, no doubt, part of this. So please, do y'all understand what we're doing? I mean, it may be to where we need a rule that says if you've ever been arrested for DUI, don't worry about applying. And
statutorily, there is grounds to waive a DUI. So it wouldn't just be a rule change, it would have to be a legislation change.
Yeah, we're going to continue the formal hearing. I'm sorry if everybody was waiting for that. Yeah, we'll definitely get together, have a rules hearing. I know that we have a administration bill that affects Post. That's Senate Bill 0265, House Bill 0313 that made it through Senate Judiciary and has been referred to the floor on the consent calendar as well. And so that's going to actually allow us, as far as bringing officers in from out of state, instead of looking at apples to apples with the curriculum and the transcript from 20 years ago against what we did 20 years ago, we'll be able to set up something similar to, the hope would be set up something similar to what Alabama does, which is a scored matrix where an officer can know based on just the years of experience the total hours of basic training and their educational level, which gives multiple avenues to qualify, how they can, transfer that certification to Tennessee. So we will need some rulemaking for that should that pass, which is looking very good. But we appreciate our legislative partners. I'm sorry that Commissioner Halsey and Commissioner Russell are not here today. I think the weather was not good for flying, but anyway, we do appreciate our legislative partners on the Post Commission. But yeah, we're going to need rules for that. And also the National Decertification Index, we're going to require agencies, should this bill pass, agencies to check the National Decertification Index prior to submitting somebody for certification to our commission. So that'll be good. And, we'll save, I think occasionally we, and it's got to happen across the country where somebody shows up and they get through a background process, but maybe the department didn't know they were decertified in some other state. So that'll help with that. But we'll need rules for that as well.
My vote is to just do it as soon as possible so we don't keep kicking this bucket on down the road. It seems like we've done that several times, so.
Just some dates. All right. Any further? Put you and Vice Chair Faulkner in charge of that. How about that? Y'all get the dates and we'll be there. Yeah, just get the dates and we'll be there. Yeah, there you go.
I'll make a motion, see if I can get a second. I'll make a motion, we do it at the end of next month, post
there you go.
Meeting.
All right.
Oh, did I get a second?
You got it,
baby. I was leading this the whole time and you finally caught it. Okay. All right. We got a motion on the floor in new business to have
whatever our next date is.
March 24th.
Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, I'll be here.
March 24th.
That'd be bad. I'll make a motion for that day and then I'll not even be here.
All right. We're gonna have after the regular business meeting on March 24th, we're gonna have rules review discussion. Okay. Everybody understand the motion? I'll hear a second from Vice Chairman. And all in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye. Opposed? It's on. Any other business? All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Everybody agree? Get up and leave. Thank you.
Now that we're adjourned.